Mark, ugly scenes, as I say, I'm used to them, but not kind of what we see much of in Westminster, really.
No, but I think you're absolutely right. Boris Johnson will find himself back in the middle of another row over this, because what we saw there were really the real-life consequences of remarks made in the Commons that people at the time, including his senior policy advisor that resigned as a result of those comments, were saying were intemperate. They were comments that shouldn't have been ushered by Boris Johnson, or uttered by, I should say, Boris Johnson. About
You say that, but there's no question, is there, that the Crown Prosecution Service failed in the case of Jimmy Savile, and that Keir Starmer was the boss of the Crown Prosecution Service. So were his comments wrong?
Well, if you're taking it from the point of view that he now says he was, which was to compare the overall leadership and responsibility of the Crown Prosecution Service to his overall leadership as he was being accused with regard to Partygate, then he has a point. Of course, he was the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, but it's such an emotive issue, everything around Jimmy Savile, that not everyone buys into the subtlety of these arguments. And when the mob is involved, as they were this evening down at Westminster, then it's very dangerous.
There have been 2 arrests made. So let's just get to the heart of this, because I know that Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid, when they were asked about this, and Rishi particularly said he wouldn't have said these words, the defence is that Boris clarified the position as opposed to apologising for the position, and that was why Munira Mirza resigned. That was the key point, that he didn't apologise. So, but just to get this absolutely right for our viewers, so Keir Starmer was in charge of the Crown Prosecution Service, but it wasn't his decision not to prosecute Jimmy Savile.
It wasn't his decision, that was further down the chain. But when you are at the top of an organisation like the Crown Prosecution Service, then of course you take ultimate responsibility, and there was an apology from the CPS at the time in the name of Keir Starmer. But of course, as I say, the subtleties of those arguments are often lost with those who just directly want to point the finger at Keir Starmer over Jimmy Savile and don't want to make a verbal point, but would actually like to make a physical point. And clearly, incidents like this outside Westminster, with what has happened outside Westminster and elsewhere involving politicians, members of Parliament, you said yourself, you've known this, you've suffered this kind of intimidation and violence for years. It is getting worse. The discourse is getting much worse, I think, in terms of people crossing over from a period in time where they were happy to heckle, but now the heckle has moved on from that, and it's physical confrontation that is actually the goal of those who want to make a point.
I suspect Mark will be hearing a lot more about this tomorrow.